Wave pool technology is progressing at a rapid rate, and commercially surfable wave pools are opening around the world. Welcome to the Wave Pool Mag podcast. My name is Nick Robinson, and through my guests, we take a detailed look at this fascinating new game. Check us out on wavepoolmag.com.
Wave Pool Mag.
For your curiosity and stoke.
Aaron Trevis, thank you so much for coming back onto the Wave Pool Mag podcast. It's great to have you back.
Well, thank you, Nick. Always enjoyable.
Yeah, well, you're in Australia right now. I think the last time we spoke, you were in London, I think, or England.
No, that's right, yeah. We finished our season there. We managed to get back escaping COVID and have been enjoying being based in Queensland since February 2020.
Whereabouts in Queensland? Are you up near Yeppoon?
At the moment, I'm in Brisbane. We're selling a house here and our office is at the Gold Coast, so we'll be moving down there in a week or two. But back and forth from Yeppoon quite a lot, obviously, with the project there.
Yeah, lots going on in Yeppoon, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But could you just catch me up on what's been happening with Surf Lake since we last recorded?
Yeah, well, quite a lot. I mean, I think it was October 2019, and since then we did some work on the liner and the lake, and we had waves again through August 2020. And recorded a whole range of new material there. So the pumped video that we put
out. I saw that. It was amazing. It was really good.
Yeah, Talon did a great job, and all the team that were filming it. It's but obviously they needed the waves, so we're really proud of the waves that were being produced. It's still only 75% of the machine capacity, but pretty epic. And no, we're really pleased, and it's been very helpful. And so with that, we've had increasing inquiries, and we've sold 3 licenses in the US, and just recently we've signed up with Dallas and Tampa, Florida, and there's 2 others coming at us in the next week to sign on. And we've got Brian Guile, who's joined us as not really a sales director, account manager for us. And there's just an ongoing list of projects. He's talking to one group that want to do 6 across the US, another group that want to do 3. So it's fun. We're really enjoying the excitement of the new projects coming in, and that's just America, let alone South America and Asia and Europe.
And generally, the projects that you're looking at, are they pretty big with large amounts of land?
Generally, yeah. There's one that's a little constrained on the coast, but they'll still be looking at the XL size. So all of them, bar one in Asia, are wanting the full size. We've had a couple of conversations about the standard model, but ultimately they've all gone for that full size so far. But we know that there'll be more of the standard ones coming out because it just makes a lot of sense for a lot of location.
Sure. Because I was just chatting to Damon from Urban Surf yesterday, and obviously they've got a very small model. I think it's about 5 hectares down in Melbourne, the total land size. Have you seen any demand for larger resorts like 40, 50 hectares?
Yeah, absolutely. One conversation we had today with a group, 200 and something hectares. I can't remember the exact figure, to be honest. And then there's another group in, I can't say too much, but in a resort area of the southern part of America, and they're wanting to build a mega resort with 4,000 rooms and
wow,
large facility. Yeah,
so there's quite a few different business models in the surf park realm, aren't there? And residential or resorts or just walk in and surf like Urban Surf, I'd imagine.
That's right, yeah. And I think because of what we're promoting and offering, we're probably having more conversations at that bigger end where they see it as the centerpiece for their theme park or their big resort or the development. Another one on the West Coast is looking at 650 apartments around here. So it's not such a big site, but it's still a full commercial and retail perimeter with that whole residential play around it. So they're building a community based around the surf lake, and that's really exciting. So It's playing out that they're recognising the value of what we're promoting. And so they like the fact that you can have the waves or you turn it off and you've got a wonderful still water lake with all the perimeter to enjoy. So that's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So since we last spoke, you've done the standard lake size as opposed to the XL that we're talking about. What led up to that decision to downscale it?
I think it was just the recognition that there are a number of sites still that have constraints. So if we want to move closer into the cities or in, I guess, the northern hemisphere where people want to cover it with a dome, it's just much easier to do. But also, too, if you look at what we've got in Yeppoon, even at that scale, it's beyond the ability of most people. So you take it to an area where there's no surf culture at all, there's really no point having overhead barrels. It's going to take a long time before people will be clambering for that. So it makes a lot of sense. So ours, the standard model is really, it lines up against the Cove, American wave machines, those type of models where you've got head-high waves, but obviously we still have 8 breaks in the pool and more of an intermediate focus with one hollow peak, really. Now, they can have more if they want, and you can upgrade those later. But that's really where it sits, as a direct head-on for those, whereas the XL's a step up in size.
Can we do a few comparisons between the XL and the standard? So, how deep and how high versus each one, and what's the real size difference?
Yeah. If you look at the lake for starters, so XL will be around the 3.6 hectare of water, whereas the standard is more 2 hectares of water. And I say, approximately, because each design will be a little bit bespoke, but it's in that order. The XL is 12 metres deep in the middle. The standard only needs to be 10. You've got 50 megalitres for the smaller one versus 80 megalitres for the larger one. The power use for the smaller one, because it's a lighter mechanism and it's running on a smaller stroke, you're not using as much power. So for all those things, it becomes a 2/3 scale and 2/3 cost overall. Obviously, there's going to be some differences in different locations, but that's the broad discussion.
And the cost?
Yeah, so more of the 20 million US versus 30 for the XL.
Okay.
Again, that's the approximate, depending on your site and what you're doing. But that's
sure, because obviously it's highly customizable, huh?
Well, that's it. Yeah. And geotechnical conditions can vary, and so we'd be foolish to set an absolute fixed cost on a site that we've never seen. So we give that order of magnitude and then work with the licensees to do the very best for them that we can.
Okay. And because of your technology, a lot of people have mentioned that there's the single point of failure argument. And how do you see that? Is that real?
Yeah, look, in theory, you could see that argument. I guess the reality for us, when you break it down, and we had this conversation just this afternoon with a big group, that if you look at that central mechanism, it's a ship. And it's so over-designed that it needs to last 48 million cycles. And because we want the weight, you can design it in a way that it's going to last 50 years. Obviously, you need to maintain it. You need to look at corrosion control. There's a few rollers and wear pads in there, but that's about it. There's really nothing that can break in that central machine. So for us, we're very confident in that because it's just such a big, dumb unit that doesn't do anything except respond to the pressure. Now, when it comes to the moving parts, you have your compressors and your valves. And for those, you have triple modular redundancy, if you like. So you can layer all of the compressors, the storage, the valves in a way that if anything goes wrong, you turn that one off and you've got more than enough capacity left. And so you can rotate that through. And so we're very confident in the commercial grade of the reliability of the unit. And so that's why we're actually wanting to do a couple ourselves, as well as license out the bulk of the other areas.
And actually operate it yourselves?
Yeah, so we're developing all of the operational systems and the risk management processes. We're working with big groups on that as well to be absolute first-class standard with all those things. So we'll be training every licensee on the operations and providing the full operational package, if you like, so they don't have to come up with anything. So we'll work with them to do that. And then in some cases, we will, have an owner-operator status, but we'll cherry-pick some of the best projects for that. But we're doing all of this with the recognition that we will be owning a couple and operating a couple at some point.
Yeah, because that's quite different to other wave tech providers. I think they just seem to be technology providers and that's it. And not many are getting into operations themselves.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your poon in a bit, because obviously that's one thing that might be on the horizon. But if you were to look at all the surf tech out there, and if you were completely impartial, which you're not, obviously,
no,
how would you rank artificial waves out there in terms of surfability? Obviously, Surf Lakes is number one, right?
Yeah. Comes down to your ability, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not ready for Ocky's Peak or the island yet on my own break. So it's quite funny as the original inventor, and I can only surf half of my waves because I need to work on my pop-up. But very surfable. I mean, and again, it depends what you're looking for. And we talk about this when we provide a complete table of all of the factors for surf parks with our clients on what makes a good commercial surf park and what makes a good surf destination. So for me, it's got to be at least a 10-second ride, and you're balancing the ability to the waves. So if it's the beach break, you don't want a radically difficult pop-up. You want something that's easy to get into and navigate. Whereas if you're an advanced surfer, You want a barrel. You want something that can barrel from start to finish, or have a section there you can launch an air off. So surfability is a very broad term, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you compare the text that's out there, American Wave Machines, if you look at Kelly's, if you look at the Cove, surfability varies depending on their setting. But for me, there's other factors. There's the wave quality and consistency. And I know that in our case, because of the design, the consistency and quality, you don't get as much backwash. And that's a big deal. And then the wind condition is another one, which people have talked about, that, you really do want offshore winds as much as possible. And because we can have that in any direction, that's a big deal. So, yeah, I think it's such a subjective term, it's hard to really judge. But you look at Kelly's 45-second ride. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, it gives you a lot of time to do what you want to do.
What about size of wave in the future? Because I was chatting to Surflock the other day, and they were talking, we was talking to a guy called Scott there, and we were talking about having a 10-foot wave in a pool. Do you think that's ever going to be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to overclaim too early, but for us, that's in the plans now. So if you look at, well, I'll put it this way. What we're doing at Yeppoon, there's 4.1 and 4.2 metre strokes. If you see the videos that we're putting out, and they're a 2.4 metre face or an 8-foot face now, it's at 75%. So when we get to that 6 metre stroke or 5.5 metre stroke, it should be nudging that height.
Wow. In the same size pool?
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be interesting to see how the beach break versus Ockies and the island actually measure up with height, because the island is such an abrupt wave. It'll be as wide as it is high, whereas the beach break has the potential to sort of build up more slowly and rise to a higher peak. So in the modelling, it actually is slightly taller than the others. If you get the right conditions with an offshore wind and it's feathering that right up, it'll be fun to see what it can do. But that's just on that current design. There's no reason why we can't make a bigger unit and run a bigger stroke. And if you look at our XXL model, it's possible to run an 8 metre stroke on a bigger unit and have 15-foot faces. So you've got pipeline at the push of a button. And that's not a ridiculous statement when you understand the scalability of the technology. But obviously that comes at a cost, that comes at an extra premium. But I think it's valid, because when you understand that surfing is going to continue to grow and the ability of surfers, and as they get to that level, well, they'll say, give me more. All right, well, let's get a centre that can do that. Most of the times they'll just run normal head-high waves. But when it comes to a big event, they can turn it up to code red and crack on. So I look forward to it.
We can see the big wave tour happening in a pool.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on where you draw the line now of what's actually a big wave, right? So,
sure.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see that size.
Yeah, that's really exciting, because I always thought it was totally beyond the realms of commercial viability. And I suppose putting a pool like that is possible. It's great to see that it's possible.
Yeah, that's right. And what we're producing to extend that mechanism out, because it's not the biggest element of cost. You will add more water, you will add more ballast, and you'll lose some productivity if you're going to push it on that size. But the only reason you would do that type of thing is for an event, right? You're not going to run it like that all day. So you would just do, once a month you have your Code Red event and run the biggest waves you can produce. And I just think it would be incredible.
That'd be amazing for publicity as well.
Oh, that's right. And the next day you're just running in a small stroke for the primary school children with little waist-high waves or a mix of between. So, yeah, but we'll get there. We'll get the first one out soon enough, and then I'm convinced that someone will take on that experience.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So just going back to COVID, how has Surf Lakes responded to COVID? Has it been a positive or negative?
Yeah, it's a bit of a two-edged sword. When, if you go back to March last year, we took the view that it could be the biggest economic crisis of our generation. Therefore, it will be the biggest opportunity facing our generation, because every government will be looking for stimulus, creating jobs. You'll have this push on domestic tourism and how do we create new experiences for people. They want construction. They want, all sorts of opportunities. And so we figured get ready, because there's going to be money thrown everywhere, and that's starting to happen already. And so, we wanted to be prepared for that. So that's why we took the opportunity to just do what we do at Yeppoon, get ready with the waves, do what we can on the design. And, it didn't slow us down too much. There's been a few projects that stalled because they just couldn't get government attention, or, money has slowed. But then there's others that have popped up instead. So overall, because we didn't have any open to the public, it hasn't hit too hard for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And on a smaller level, I think just the efficiency of having meetings with everybody around the world is everyone's so keyed into video conferencing these days, just makes it a whole lot easier. So, I mean, personally, I found that in Portugal.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that was our world anyway, so it didn't change much for me, but it certainly has become more acceptable and people are less concerned about travelling to Australia because they just can't anyway. So I guess the issue with COVID is it may become an issue for us if the travel to Australia doesn't open up, sometime this year and we can't get people out to test the lake. That could become an issue. But it doesn't really matter if we get our first commercial project rolling this year as we expect to anyway. So we think we're okay.
Okay, so that lake in Yeppoon, I mean, it's fantastic. You've obviously been doing a lot of work down there. What are your plans for that lake? Because you mentioned, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, you may want to operate some yourself. Is that going to be an operation that you'll run yourself, Yeppoon?
Yeah, so we're actually completed. It should be in today, actually, a planning application to get approval to upgrade that as a commercial site. It could be an incredible destination. And so we're putting in for the application. We've got an option on the land with the owner there. So he's been very generous, allowing us to take the option to buy that. And yeah, so that's what we're pushing forward. So we still need to raise the capital for that, but there's a lot of interest from all levels of government. And there's the only question we get asked is when it's open to the public, because everybody wants to come and surf it. So we know that there'll be demand. And then there's opportunity for accommodation there as well. So it's an overall destination package. It's not a major city, so it doesn't have the millions of people that other locations have. But with the region and with the overall business plan, it seems quite strong. We're excited about that. We just got to manage the cost and bring in the right partners.
Yeah, what would it look like if you walked in and would it just be the pool, or would you put in some ancillary activities, accommodation? What's the idea?
Yeah, so it's really, if you think of an eco surf camp / resort model, so it'll start off with the pool and some basic camping and glamping, and then it'll upgrade into 75 cabins, and there's space for a full tourist park, so camping caravans and cabins. And ultimately, in the next stage of development, we're marking out space for a hotel overlooking a lagoon, which is connected to the lake as well. So you'd need to have accommodation there because there's actually not enough in the area. It's pretty booming at the moment. So, yeah, it's an overall destination. So we want to make it a very natural, environmentally friendly surf destination. And because of the beautiful mountains that surround, it's actually an incredible destination.
Yeah, it looks great from all the videos that I've seen.
Yeah.
And what about tents? Are tents big in Australia? I mean, they're big in Africa, where I'm from, and they're sort of still getting a little bit of gaining interest here in Europe. But are tents a thing that you'd look at?
Yeah, you bet. So, we'll start off with glamping tents on a deck that's a little higher end, but also for all levels. People are quite happy. And it's huge in Australia, particularly post-COVID. They can't keep up with the demand for caravans and camper vans and tents and anything that gets people on the road. It's crazy. They really are. They're literally selling out. So many people have just taken to the outdoors in a big way. And this actually is positioned right in the middle of that crazy trend. And so the faster, the better, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that Yeppoon didn't have a massive population. What's the surrounding catchment area look like regarding population?
Yeah, so we'd have to draw a line really for a 4-hour drive. It's kind of a rural, regional area. You're only talking a few 100,000 people in that radius, but you get a number of tourists coming through. It's less than a 1-hour flight from Brisbane. And so it's a very easy destination to fly in for a week or a long weekend. And we have a number of wealthy surfers already flying in their helicopters to test it out. So
nice.
Yeah, need a couple of helipads there as well. Interesting.
Sounds amazing. Might as well put in
Looks very cool.
A full-on runway.
Well, that's it. Well, there's one across the road. So, and then you've got the airport, only 40 minutes drive away. So it's actually quite easily accessible. And look, there's a real shift in that outdoor lifestyle. And there's a big shift to the regions as well. And so those areas that you can hardly buy a house or rent a house in that area, it's just so many people are moving away from the city. And so to put this amenity there in what is a gorgeous area, you've got, Keppel Islands and beautiful rainforest, and it's undiscovered to most of Australia, to be honest, yet alone the world. And so, they're starting to realise the natural beauty of the whole region.
I'd never heard of Yeppoon until you put it on the map.
That's right. Yeah, we've done a good thing for the tourism now. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely,
It's certainly well known in the surfing world.
Yeah. So let's recount some stories of the fantastic people who have surfed your pool. I mean, there's Aki and any celebrities or funny stories down at the lake?
Oh, look, I mean, they've loved it. I mean, Dean Morrison is the recent one on the island. He's absolutely thrilled, and he's got a collection of celebs that want to come and surf it when we open this year. So you can stay tuned for some of that. Yeah, Barton's been down, but because he missed last year because he was stuck in America.
Barton Lynch, yeah.
Barton Lynch, yeah, he's been big wave riding and had more waves to himself in Hawaii than ever before, I think. So he's not doing too bad. It's been a blast because in August and other times, we've had a series of caravans out there because there's not much out there at the moment. So we've actually hired in vans and tents, and people have camped around there and sat around the fire and watched the waves at sunset. We had a night surf. So it was a taste of things to come for us. It was a real surf destination. I loved it.
That must be an amazing experience, watching the sun go down with the lights up and having a fire and just like really cooking surf. Yeah,
it was great. It just felt like, we've discovered this new break. We're pioneering this whole new thing. It was really crazy. So people really have enjoyed that. They've just loved just genuine surf camp. That's what it felt like.
But how do you choose the people to come and surf? Are you focusing on surf celebrities, or are you focusing or just across the board?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of both. It depends on availability too. So there's still a lot more that want to come that haven't been able to. So, we think, the ability to surf is useful to us. So there's a few movie stars who can surf and they can come up, obviously, and enjoy it. But then, we've got local media in the ABC and others who want to bring, do a focus on women surfing and bring up a bunch of girls who aren't great surfers, but they want to experience the beach break, and some of them learn to surf as well. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a collection, really. But there'll be a lot more to come this year because Wayne Dart, our media director, has 62 or 63 different groups who want to hold an event there of some sort, right? Whether it's filming for their brand or bodyboard event. You've got the adaptive surfers. You've got even jet ski clubs who want to come and do jet ski competitions and jumps in the lake. So that's really life-saving groups. So that feeds very well into the feasibility plan, because when you've already got what could be one event per week for the first year, that's very encouraging. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It sounds great. And what's interesting, I was just thinking earlier, when we looked at BSR Resort opening in the middle of Texas, and everybody from around America, from the West Coast and from the East Coast, just flying in to surf BSR. I'm sure that'll be the same kind of thing in Yeppoon, but it'll get to a stage where the uniqueness of that'll rub off, and they'll probably go down to somewhere else or somewhere local to them when there are more and more wave pools open. So does that concern you as well?
We certainly understand it, and so you want to make hay while that sun shines, right, to use the phrase. But then what we also find is this whole wave pool industry, the surf park industry, will be growing more and more surfers. Firstly, fishing the middle-aged tragics like me out of retirement from surfing and doing it more again because they can, and that's happening a lot. And then there's just more and more people who will learn and enjoy it, and they'll want to go to all the wave pools, all the surf parks. So we're confident that 99% who don't yet surf, that market will be drawn into it. So we really do believe that there's room for everyone. And as long as each destination offers something unique and different, then it's not just about the waves, it's about the whole package. So the one in Yeppoon, for example, is just a wonderful getaway destination. You can have the holiday of a lifetime visiting there, guaranteed surf. There is a local surf beach. When the conditions are good, you could drive up the beach and have that experience, which is pretty rare. You've got tropical islands with coral and snorkeling, and then there's rainforest just up there. So you could have 2 weeks and never get bored and surf perfect waves every day. So I like it.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You hinted at what we like to call aspirational surfers, and I think you've used that term a lot as well. And did you think these statistics are right? I reckon there's probably about 200 million aspirational surfers in the world, where there's only 17 to 35 million real surfers. And obviously, when you take all those barriers to entry out of the way and you put them in a pool, you're right, there's going to be a flood of people coming in.
That's it, yeah. And look, we're all speculating as to how fast and how far that will go, but it just makes sense. And again, it depends on the surveys you listen to, whether it's 40% or 80% of that, the rest of the population. But either way, that's a staggering number. And if you can provide an experience which is sensitive to that and helps them engage, you don't need all of them to take up surfing full time to feed a very successful surf park.
Because in the last 2 years, I mean, it feels like the wave pool industry has got hundreds of projects around the world have been talked about.
Yes.
Do you think a lot of that's hype, or what's really happening out there?
There's always the promotion in order to get approval and funding, right? You're seeing a lot of early claims, and we got excited about a couple of projects before we realised that this they may take a lot longer than we thought. So a lot of it is pushing for support before it's actually ready, but there's also probably a few others there that we haven't even heard of yet that will surprise us with their rapid execution.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been working on one in Portugal for the last 2 years, and I'm trying to keep it as quiet as possible. So I don't know even why I mentioned it. But
yeah, no, well, there you go. But there's a point. So there's probably others like that as well. And so what I do know is not all the projects that we're seeing at the moment will go through to completion, but they'll be replaced by many others. And we just know that in our own discussions. We've only announced a handful, but there's 3 to 4 times that in the pipeline building through. And so as they become real, we'll have a chance to share them. But look, we're being a little conservative with our exclusivity areas and making sure people have enough market, at least what we give them, to succeed very well.
But those exclusivity areas, I think it's quite an interesting approach from tech providers like yourself, because you can essentially guarantee exclusivity with your tech, but you can't guarantee exclusivity from other people's tech. So how does that float about?
Again, it's finding the balance of their confidence. So they need enough space to at least know that our tech will be not competing against each other. And I guess we take the view that our tech is very competitive. So in the commercial realm, with the productivity, the simultaneous variety, it means that they can reduce pricing and survive and thrive very well. And you've got more shoreline amenity and development potential. As an investment package, it actually provides potentially lower risk than the others. And then it's just a question of appropriate capital spend. So because we're effectively providing 4 surf parks in one, but obviously the cost for an XL is higher than the cost of the others. So it's more value, but more cost initially. Mm-hmm. But you're kind of future proofing is the idea, is you're getting a big leap ahead, so you're not concerned about what other tech will be doing down the track.
Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of pushback in France against wave pools. Is there anything similar happening in Australia? And why do you reckon that's happening in France? Because it sounds like an environmental thing, actually.
Yeah, we're not seeing that pushback, but it's not really in Australia. We've only got the Tullamarine and ours at Yeppoon, and there's been an announcement by a group on the Gold Coast who they don't have approval yet, but they're announcing one there. So I think, Australians just love them anyway, and I don't think there's going to be a problem, provided they are sensible. And in our case, we're really pushing down the sustainability path. We want to be adding value to the environment and being very responsible, and we've signed up with Stoke Certified, and we want to actually demonstrate that we're good stewards of the environment in our design and construction right through. So, we've got still learning to do, but I think we're on the right path, and we're getting a lot of good feedback. And there's groups that are coming at us specifically for that because they want to have big eco regions and sustainable projects. And there's a lot of money available for that if you are serious, if you're not just greenwashing. So I think the water use is a big deal. Not every area is going to find it easy to get water or justify that. And then, how you manage the entire development is really important as well.
Yeah, I guess there's water and there's energy, isn't there? And
yes. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I didn't mention the energy, but it is a really key one.
Yeah, because I know that Wave Garden's making a serious push for energy efficiency. And so how does a Surf Lake wave stack up to a Wave Garden wave in terms of energy consumption?
Yeah, it's hard to compare apples with apples. I mean, at the moment you have technology providers with claims. Unless we could really dig into that and understand, what size wave, what length of wave, what is the real comparison. And I know the guys at Surf Park Central are trying to do that, but it's a bit of a slow exercise. So for us, I chuckle because there's about 4 providers that claim to be the most efficient wave park. It's like, well, one of them will be right. I just don't know which one. So for us, we're not claiming to be the most efficient at this stage. We're just saying, here's how it is. You've got small, medium, and large swell sizes, and obviously there's an exponential energy increase as you go up to the bigger size. But we've got the estimate of what we'll produce at the commercial per ride. That's really the important thing is, if you've got a surfer on a wave, what's the cost of that? What is the revenue from that? And what is, including the energy for that ride? And I think that's a good measure. Ultimately, you could get scientific and talk about the length of ride as well and how that all compares. But I guess for us, because the swell's being released and set free, it's one parcel of energy that's producing that. So the length of ride is less critical because it'll be the same, energy, whether they get an 8-second, 10 or 15-second ride, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's the energy measure we use. So I know at the moment the head high, the 6 or 7 foot face rides is 1.7 kilowatts per ride. I know Wavegarden are talking about 1 kilowatt per ride, and others are claiming similar things. Until we operate a commercial one, we don't want to overclaim that. We'd rather leave it at that number and improve on that as we go, which we can do because I know we can have wave energy and then tidal turbines in the channels, and there's a lot of ways of utilising renewables in that mix as well.
Do you think that kilowatt per ride will become the standard? Because it's very difficult to measure, and I know that Dr. Jess Ponting is doing a lot of research there as well and trying to come up with a standard. So do you think that'll be the thing that he uses?
Yeah, I think so. But because the tech's so different, if you look at Wavegarden, they've got a number of cells, and same with American Wave Machines. So as you add cells, by definition, you'll be adding some energy as well. And so you're sort of putting energy right in. But ultimately, I think it's, what is your kilowatt use per ride? And then you can compare ride length to see what, how that averages out across the park. It seems to be the logical thing for me, but Jeff's is smart. He might come up with a better plan.
He is, yeah. We had a long involved chat. He's very hard to keep up, yeah.
Yeah. They don't give people doctorates for no reason, do they?
Exactly. So, Aaron, what's the next big thing? Where does the focus lie at Surflax right now regarding R&D or anything else?
Well, our business focus is the first commercial project. We've got to get one open to the public as soon as possible. Yeppoon has one. There's another one in Australia which could move quickly, and there's 2 in America which could move quite quickly as well. So, we'll know over the next few months by June which that is, and we're just lining up with our commercial design and all of our systems as if Yeppoon will be the first, but if someone else jumps in front, that's okay too. So we'll just juggle that as we need to. So from there, it's refining that and then do another 2 and another 4 and another 8, and it'll escalate from there because that's really the only question that people have is, we love it, we think it's the best, where's your commercial one? And until we answer that, there's always going to be that question mark and a perception of risk. Once we're through that gate, so to speak, it'll take off.
But I guess there's all these milestones. You've already got the major milestone out of the way by putting your first prototype out there. And some wave tech providers don't even have a prototype out there. So you're ahead of the game, which is exciting.
Well, that's right. In that sense, we are. And others have signed on projects without a big-scale prototype. But if you look at the pneumatic systems, a lot of them are pretty similar, so they can see how that risk is taken care of. I guess the discussion we have with clients is there's different risks and different needs for your project. For us, the biggest risk would be putting in a technology that gets superseded, where suddenly it's seen as good but not great. So we want to be the one that is exciting for the next 20 years, that you just blows your mind. So that's really the thing.
Well, I'm going to go and watch that Pumped video again. It gets me all excited.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And look, in terms of R&D, we do have a big focus on that. We've got a shopping list of things we want to continue to move in and refine. And it's really all then about efficiency and cost reduction. And we're actually talking to groups about financing for projects as well and how to best package that. And so there's a lot of interest around different models which can reduce the CapEx and the risk and share that risk across everyone involved. So that, to me, I think will be a serious breakthrough, not just for us, but probably for all surf parks where there's such an appetite there and such an acceptance of it that it just becomes much easier to access the funding for it, because it's still a little early for, I think, the mainstream financiers.
Excellent.
So that'll change.
Well, great, Aaron. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming onto the show and chatting to us. And keep Brian and me and myself posted about your events. I'm sure you will do what's going on.
Absolutely.
So, thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy. Nice to talk, Nick. See you again.
Ciao.
Bye.
For your curiosity and stoke.